So let's switch gears to a pass catcher, right? Going from a quarterback to a pass catcher. This guy from the state of Florida making his way to Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, Kansas State wide receiver Jayce Brown, 6', 179 from Choctawhatchee High School in Fort Walton Beach, right by you, Clay, up in the panhandle of Florida. This is Fort Walton Beach, for those who don't know, kind of in between Destin and Pensacola there on the Florida panhandle. He had a great year, period. But then last week, 4 catches, 160 yards against Kansas, 78-yard touchdown. He's got 9 30-plus scrimmage yard plays this year, which ranks him 3rd nationally, 7th nationally last year. So this is a explosive, big play guy.
Yeah. I'll have you all talk a little bit about some of the recruiting. I don't know if you guys remember him as a recruit or have any thoughts on that, but this is a guy who's been really productive early for Kansas State. He got on the field as a freshman, made a bit of an impact, was sort of getting into the rotation. And then last year as a sophomore, he had 823 receiving yards, and that was the most by a Kansas State receiver since Tyler Lockett. And it also set the Kansas State sophomore receiving yardage record. He's got the basketball background, the track background, some family relations to other professional athletes. So this is a guy. One thing I did notice just looking at the numbers is the drops have been a pretty big issue throughout his entire career. 10+% drop rate in all 3 seasons, 13 drops in his career. So that still needs to be cleaned up, and it hasn't been so far this year. But if he can clean it up, this is a, I don't know, probably a top 100 potential pick. I think I could see that. He's a pretty complete player outside of the drops and maybe the frame, but he's got a lot of things that you like.
Yeah, and I pulled up his recruiting profile here, so we could talk about it. As you see, I mean, he was a 3-star recruit, ranked about 1400th nationally on the 247 composite, 203. So I guess he was 195 on 247's ratings, and the composite was 203. And I was just looking at it. Did not seem like he took any other visits other than Kansas State. Some of these, the other schools, he had offers on paper, but I'm not sure how much he was actually being recruited by any other P4 school. It looks like here. So you got to give Kansas State a lot of credit on this evaluation.
Yeah, almost 2,000 on. Remember to like and subscribe to Group Chat Sports. With Jayce Brown, the draft projection, I got to see him really run a full route tree, like in like a kind of a combine setting, just to know. Because every time I see him, it seems like he's just screaming down the sideline, catching these long passes. Which, look, there's obviously a value in being an explosive player, especially when you're consistent like that. But the recruiting part of it, yeah, he's from the Panhandle, so he's close to all those SEC schools. Certainly close to Florida State University. University of Florida is not that far. But look at some of the background. The one that jumps out is Florida State, right? Because his sister is the all-time leader in games played for FSU.
Starts, steals, games played. Yeah.
So it's not exactly a secret commodity. And then you look at some of the stuff he was doing in high school. He ran track. Wasn't like a blinding track guy like a Micah Danzy, right? He wasn't that kind of guy, but he was someone who ran the 200 meters, 22.9, so under 23, but not like blazing in the 200, but good enough. His dad played AAA baseball, of course. His sister, Jayce Brown, also played basketball. So when you kind of start building up the profile, and Pete, see if you pull up his huddle here, because I'd love to just look what he was doing there in the state of Florida, where he was the 201st ranked player, right? It's unbelievable. Great evaluation job by Kansas State. This is why Kansas State consistently produces NFL players, because they find guys like this. But you look at what he did in high school. He had 925 yards, 12 touchdowns, 48 passes, ran for a touchdown. And then on defense, this is what jumped out to me. And maybe this is why he got lost in the shuffle. I don't know if teams thought he was defense, maybe wanted to play offense. I'm speculating, but he had 10 interceptions, and they went to the regional finals. So it's not like this was a non-productive player. I just think the Panhandle in general, unless you're like, a Trenton Henderson, who we just talked about a second ago, LSU commit 5-star player, or someone who's going to FSU, sometimes these guys can get lost in the shuffle. I think about Martin Emerson, who went to Mississippi State,
Mississippi
right?
State, yeah.
I mean, just guys like that. Just use just a simple example of someone out that is from not far away at Pine Forest. These guys sometimes can slip under the cracks, and this is the latest example, as you see right here. A lot of stuff he's doing in Kansas State, I mean, it's right here on his film.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right about them, these evaluations being so critical and why you see the success in Kansas State, because obviously that is not a recruiting hotbed. They pulled in Lincoln Cure last year, so we'll see how they develop him. But this is how you make your money at one of these programs, is finding guys like this in other states that maybe are being overlooked. This seems like a guy that certainly could be helping FSU. And obviously he's got the family ties, so that one's a little bit of a head scratcher.
He could help Miami too. He could help a lot of teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we talk about stars a lot and recruiting, and I hate just using a one-off to not discredit stars, but it is just important to remember, like, this is a guy who comes in the same class as Hakeem Williams, and that's a guy that everybody was extremely excited for at FSU, understandably so, freak athlete. But if you can't play, and this is a guy who can clearly play and was doing it at a higher level, I think, than Hakeem was in high school, facing better competition, man, lays the hit there. These are the guys that you need to pursue, and the rankings, might scare teams away, but this is clearly a pretty good football player, and I think Kansas State made the right move, obviously.
Devin Witherspoon, another guy that I should have mentioned, who's from the Panhandle, though, is an underrated guy. There's a ton. I'm just going off some top of the head. But Pete, when you watch this high school video and you look at the stats, you think, first of all, the production at receivers there, right? He's almost 1,000-yard receiver. And then we talked about the multi-sport already with the basketball and track, but then also playing defense at the high level. Like, it seems like we're seeing trends here with all these 3-star guys that we go back, that turn into NFL players, and we go back and watch their film. It's always they play multiple sports, they play multiple spots on the field, and they're productive, man. I mean, you mentioned Hakeem Williams, Clay. I don't think Hakeem Williams was a very productive high school wide receiver, and I think that's something that, particularly at the wide receiver position, you see a lot of. But Pete, what comes to your mind as you're watching these high school highlights?
I'm just going to go back to what I said. You got to give credit to Kansas State for the evaluation, but it's like, what are some of these other programs doing? Tulane offered him. Western Kentucky offered him. Western Kentucky, a program that uses receivers all across the field. Georgia State offered him. But, like, this guy would be a great player at a Georgia Tech. Imagine him with Georgia Tech right now. They have Eric Rivers over there now. But, like, it's more about how the heck did no one else see him? It's one thing to say great evaluation from Kansas State, but all these other programs were asleep because, you see him running by guys, you see him winning, balls at the catch point. Both sides of the ball has been a prevalent thing. And then one thing to me, we talk about guys who play both sides of the ball, but it's one thing to play defense if you're an offensive player, but how do you play defense? Are you out there just because you're the best athlete on the field, or are you bringing that striking mentality? Clay, you mentioned a couple of these hits that he's had have been impressive. He doesn't seem like a guy who plays scared out there in any sense. So
yeah, these are super impressive highlights. I mean, I do kind of wonder when you said the thing about, I wonder if teams kind of just wonder what his long-term home was, because really these DB and receiver highlights are pretty equal in my opinion right now. He's looked really dominant on both sides. Yeah, if they couldn't develop Hakeem, what makes me think they'd develop him? I don't know. I mean, just probably a bit more buy-in and seriousness from Jayce Brown, and the fact that he was probably a little bit more refined, clearly more refined out of high school. So not as much development needed. He's a little bit more ready-made to play right away.
Yeah, I was going to say that obviously Kansas State's a good developmental program, and he did develop. But you watch this film; it's not like he's like a raw type of player. I mean, he's doing a lot of the same stuff he does in college. He's running different types of routes. There, you see it right there. I mean, of course, he got a lot better, but and I've seen this before, which is interesting. Some of these guys that are underrated, you go back and watch their high school highlights. I remember Dalton Kincaid who was like a 0-star. I think went to JUCO, then he went to Utah, or he went somewhere small as a receiver. I remember watching his high school highlights, and he was kind of like the same player, just with a little more size. So you're like, sometimes these guys that are underrated out of high school, they're not necessarily raw. Sometimes they're just undiscovered, and they actually are pretty polished coming out, and you see some of that with Jayce Brown. So ultimately, before we move on from him, you're thinking top 100 there, Clay, for Jayce Brown. You would say potentially.
I would say probably day 3 right now, but like I said, honestly I kind of have some optimism he can clean up those drops. I'd have to go back and like watch each one, but he obviously has good ball skills in contested situations on that high school tape. And he's been over 50% in contested catches all 3 years of his career. I think he's at 58% throughout his career. So that makes me think it's not the tough ones that he's dropping. You know, it's probably those focus drops just underneath, over the middle. Maybe here's footsteps or something. I don't know. So I'll have to watch those. But right now, that, and if he can put on some more weight, those are kind of the two things that give me pause. But I do think he could be a 3rd-round guy if he cleans that up. And there's no need for him to declare either, just a true junior. So I don't know if he'd enter the portal. He obviously could have done so this offseason. So we'll see. I guess maybe that'll come down to Avery Johnson and what his status is for next year.